Hey people, get ready to crush everyday TOEFL iBT tests for all modules and make your dreams come true. I'm your motivator and I'll be guiding you through the test prep videos. So don't forget to like, share, and subscribe or you'll be missing out on some serious preparation.
Conversation 1. You will hear a conversation. A female student visits the University Health Center to schedule an appointment for recurring headaches. She speaks with a male receptionist who helps her book a time with a doctor, advises her on warning signs, and assists when she reveals she has lost her insurance card. First, you have some time to look at the 5 questions. Now listen carefully and answer the questions. Hi, I was hoping to make an appointment to see a doctor. I've been having really bad headaches for the past week.
Of course. Are you a registered student here at Westfield University?
Yes, I am. My name is Emily Chen, student ID 447-1829.
Great, let me pull up your file. Okay, I see you were here last semester for a flu shot. So, what seems to be the problem today?
Like I said, I've been getting these really intense headaches, mostly in the mornings. They've been going on for about a week, and over-the-counter medicine isn't helping much.
I see. Have you been experiencing any other symptoms, nausea, sensitivity to light, or dizziness?
A little bit of sensitivity to light, actually. I didn't think that was related.
It could be. Dr. Rivera usually handles these kinds of cases. She's available this Thursday at 2 o'clock or Friday morning at 9. Which would work better for you?
Thursday at 2. I have a chemistry lab that runs from 1 to 3:30, so that won't work. Can I do Friday at 9?
Friday at 9 it is. Now, one thing, if your symptoms get significantly worse before then, particularly if you develop a fever or the headaches become severe, please come in right away or go to the emergency room.
Okay, that's a little scary. Do you think it could be something serious?
I'm not trying to alarm you, most headaches like this turn out to be tension-related or connected to dehydration and sleep patterns. Dr. Rivera will be able to give you a proper evaluation. In the meantime, make sure you're drinking plenty of water and getting enough sleep.
That actually makes sense. I've been staying up really late finishing a big research paper.
That would certainly do it. Also, I'll need you to bring your student health insurance card on Friday. We have it on file, but it's always good to have it with you.
Oh, I actually think I lost my card. Is that going to be a problem?
Not a big problem. You can visit the Student Services office before your appointment and request a replacement. They can usually print one for you on the spot.
Great, I'll do that. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Feel better soon.
That is the end of the conversation 1. You now have some time to answer the questions. Conversation 2. You will hear a conversation. A male student visits the university computer lab's technical support desk because the graphic design software he has been using keeps crashing and may have corrupted his project file, which is due by midnight that same evening. A female lab technician attempts file recovery, explains the cause of the crash, and offers further assistance. First, you have some time to look at the 5 questions. Now listen carefully and answer the questions.
Excuse me, I really need some help. I've been trying to finish my graphic design project, but the software keeps crashing every time I try to open my file.
Oh no, that's frustrating. Which software are you using?
It's Design Pro, the version installed on the lab computers. I've been working on this project for 3 weeks and it's due tonight at midnight.
Okay, let me take a look. Which computer were you working on?
Station 14, over there. The file is saved on the shared network drive under my student account.
Alright, let me try opening the file from here. You're right, it's giving me an error message. It says the file may be corrupted.
Corrupted? Does that mean all my work is gone?
Not necessarily. The system automatically creates backup versions every hour. Let me check if there's a recent one. Yes, there's a backup from about 2 hours ago.
2 hours ago? I kept working for another hour and a half after that. I made a lot of changes.
I understand. The backup only captures what was saved at that point, so those recent changes wouldn't be included. But here's what we can try. I can run a file repair using our recovery tool. It sometimes works on corrupted files and may recover more of your recent work.
Please try that. I really can't afford to lose that work.
Okay, I'm running the repair now. It'll take a few minutes. While we wait, do you know what you were doing in the program right before it crashed?
I was trying to export the file as a PDF. As soon as I clicked export, the whole program froze and then just shut down.
That actually helps explain it. There's a known bug in this version of Design Pro where exporting large files with embedded high-resolution images can cause the program to crash. We've already reported it to the IT department and they're working on an update.
That's good to know, I guess. But it doesn't really help me right now.
True. Oh, the repair tool just finished. Good news, it recovered most of your file. It looks like you may have only lost about 30 minutes of work rather than the full hour and a half.
That's a huge relief. I can definitely redo 30 minutes of work. Thank you so much.
Of course. And going forward, once you finish editing, save a copy of the file first before you try to export it. That way, if the program crashes again, your original file will still be intact.
That's really smart. I'll definitely do that.
Also, if the program crashes again before midnight and you need more time, come see me and I can write a note to your professor explaining the technical issue on our end.
Oh, that's really helpful. I'll keep that in mind. Thanks again.
No problem. Good luck finishing your project. That is the end of the conversation too. You now have some time to answer the questions. Lecture 1. You will hear part of a lecture about art history. Impressionism movement. First, you have some time to look at the 6 questions. Now listen carefully and answer the questions.
Good morning, everyone. Today we're going to talk about one of the most transformative movements in Western art history, Impressionism. Now, when we use that term, we're referring to a style that emerged in France during the 1860s and 1870s, and it fundamentally changed the way artists thought about painting. Before Impressionism, the dominant tradition in Europe was academic art, highly polished, historically themed paintings that followed strict rules about composition and technique. Impressionist painters broke almost every single one of those rules. The name Impressionism actually came from a critic who meant it as an insult. In 1874, a group of artists, including Claude Monet, Pierre-Auguste Renoir, Edgar Degas, and Berthe Morisot, held an independent exhibition in Paris. One of Monet's paintings was titled Impression, Sunrise, and a journalist named Louis Leroy mocked the entire exhibition by calling the artists Impressionists. The painters, rather cleverly, adopted the label and wore it proudly. That's a nice historical irony. A term designed to ridicule became the defining name of a celebrated movement. So what made these paintings so different? Let me focus on 3 core characteristics. First, Impressionists were obsessed with capturing light, specifically, how natural light changes from moment to moment. Monet famously painted the same subject, like haystacks or the Rouen Cathedral, dozens of times at different hours and seasons, just to record how shifting light transformed the appearance of ordinary objects. Second, they used short, visible brushstrokes that gave their canvases a loose, sketch-like quality, very different from the smooth, blended surfaces of academic painting. Third, they painted en plein air, that's French for, in the open air, meaning they set up their easels outdoors rather than working in studios from sketches.
Student, Professor Holloway, you mentioned Berthe Morisot. I thought Impressionism was mainly a male movement. Were there many women involved?
That's a really important question, and one that art historians have worked hard to correct. Berthe Morisot was actually one of the founding members of the Impressionist group. She exhibited in 7 of the 8 Impressionist exhibitions. Mary Cassatt, an American painter based in Paris, was also a central figure. These women faced enormous institutional barriers. They couldn't attend the prestigious École des Beaux-Arts, and it was considered improper for them to paint in public spaces like cafés or racetracks, which is why their work often focused on domestic and private scenes. But within those constraints, they produced some of the most technically sophisticated work of the entire movement. So no, Impressionism was not exclusively a male movement at all. It's just that art history, for a long time, was written that way. Now, the critical and commercial reception of Impressionism during its own time was largely hostile. The Salon, that was the official, state-sponsored art exhibition in Paris, the only major venue that really mattered for an artist's career, repeatedly rejected Impressionist works. The public found the loose brushwork unfinished and the subject matter too ordinary. These weren't mythological heroes or biblical scenes, these were people at picnics, women ironing clothes, ballet dancers backstage. Over time, though, tastes changed dramatically. By the 1890s, Impressionist works were selling for significant sums, and today they are among the most valuable and beloved paintings in the world. The movement also paved the way for post-Impressionism, Fauvism, and ultimately abstract art in the 20th century. So in a very real sense, modern art begins with those painters who dared to put a dab of unmixed color on a canvas and call it sunlight.
That is the end of the lecture 1. You now have some time to answer the questions. Lecture 2. You will hear part of a lecture about astronomy. Neutron star properties. First, you have some time to look at the 6 questions. Now listen carefully and answer the questions.
Alright, let's jump in. We've been talking about stellar evolution, how stars live and die, and today I want to focus on one of the most extreme objects that results from a star's death, the neutron star. When a massive star, typically one with a mass between about 8 and 20 times that of our Sun, exhausts its nuclear fuel, the core collapses under its own gravity. This collapse is incredibly rapid, happening in a matter of seconds, and the energy released drives a supernova explosion that blows away the outer layers of the star. What's left behind, if the core mass falls within a certain range, is a neutron star. Now let's talk about what neutron stars actually are, because they are genuinely bizarre objects. A typical neutron star packs roughly 1.4 times the mass of our entire Sun into a sphere only about 20 kilometers across. That's roughly the size of a city. The density is almost incomprehensible. A single teaspoon of neutron star material would weigh approximately 1 billion tons on Earth. The reason for this extreme density is in the name. Under such crushing gravitational pressure, protons and electrons in the stellar core are forced together to form neutrons. So the entire star is essentially a giant atomic nucleus. Neutron stars also have extraordinarily powerful magnetic fields, in many cases, 1 trillion times stronger than Earth's magnetic field. This has some remarkable consequences. Some neutron stars are observed as pulsars. A pulsar is a rapidly rotating neutron star that emits beams of electromagnetic radiation, usually radio waves, from its magnetic poles. Because the magnetic axis is misaligned with the rotational axis, these beams sweep through space like a lighthouse beam. Every time that beam sweeps past Earth, we detect a pulse. Some pulsars rotate hundreds of times per second. They are called millisecond pulsars, and they keep time so precisely that they rival atomic clocks.
Student, Professor Vasquez, if pulsars rotate that fast, do they ever slow down over time?
Yes, great question. Isolated pulsars do gradually slow down as they lose rotational energy through their radiation. However, and this is interesting, millisecond pulsars are actually thought to have been spun up by accreting matter from a companion star in a binary system. So they were once slower pulsars that gained angular momentum by pulling in material from a nearby star. This process can accelerate them to those extraordinary rotation rates, and once spun up, they slow down much more gradually than regular pulsars. Binary systems, it turns out, are key to understanding some of the most extreme behaviors of neutron stars. One more class of neutron stars I want to mention are magnetars. Magnetars have magnetic fields that are even stronger than typical neutron stars. We're talking fields up to 1,000 times stronger than an ordinary pulsar. When a magnetar's magnetic field shifts or fractures, it can release enormous bursts of gamma rays and X-rays in what are called soft gamma repeaters or anomalous X-ray pulsar events. These events can, for a fraction of a second, outshine the entire Milky Way galaxy in X-ray luminosity. Neutron stars, whether as pulsars, millisecond pulsars, or magnetars, represent some of the most energetic and extreme physics in the known universe, and studying them gives us a window into matter and forces that simply cannot be replicated in any laboratory on Earth.
That is the end of the lecture too. You now have some time to answer the questions. Lecture 3. You will hear part of a lecture about history. Silk Road Trade Networks. First, you have some time to look at the 6 questions. Now listen carefully and answer the questions.
Good afternoon. Over the past few weeks we've been looking at ancient trade systems, and today I want to dig into what is probably the most famous of them all, the Silk Road. Now, right away I need to clarify a common misconception: the Silk Road was not a single road. It was a vast, shifting network of overland and maritime routes connecting East Asia, Central Asia, South Asia, the Middle East, East Africa, and Europe. The term itself was coined only in 1877 by a German geographer named Ferdinand von Richthofen. The ancient peoples who actually used these routes had no single name for them. These routes functioned continuously for roughly a millennium and a half, from around the 2nd century BCE through the 15th century CE. The name, Silk Road, emphasizes silk because Chinese silk was among the most prized commodities in the ancient world. Roman elites paid extraordinary prices for it. But silk was only one of many goods that traveled these routes. From east to west, merchants carried spices, porcelain, tea, and paper. China's invention of paper was a transformative technology that spread westward via these trade routes. From west to east traveled glassware, gold, silver, wool, and linen textiles. Central Asia contributed horses, particularly the famous heavenly horses of Fergana, which the Han Dynasty Chinese coveted for military purposes. So when we think of the Silk Road, we should think of it as a vast exchange network for goods of all kinds, not just silk. But here's what I really want to emphasize today: the Silk Road was not merely an economic system. It was also one of the most important vectors for the transmission of ideas, religions, and disease in the pre-modern world. Buddhism traveled from South Asia into Central and East Asia along these routes. Islam later spread across Central Asia in part through merchant networks. Nestorian Christianity reached Tang Dynasty China along the same paths. And tragically, it is now believed that the Black Death, the bubonic plague pandemic of the 14th century, spread westward from Central Asia into Europe partly along Silk Road trade corridors, carried by rodents and fleas aboard merchant caravans.
Student, Professor Okafor, when you say the Black Death spread along the Silk Road, does that mean trade was actually harmful in that case, like a negative consequence of connectivity?
That's exactly the right way to frame it. Historians use the term globalization even in the pre-modern context to capture this double-edged quality. Connectivity brings enormous benefits: goods, technologies, religions, art forms, but it also carries risks, and pandemic disease is the starkest example. The same caravan routes and maritime corridors that carried silk and spices also carried pathogens. The Black Death killed somewhere between 1/3 and 1/2 of Europe's population in the 14th century, and it devastated Central Asian and Middle Eastern populations as well. So yes, the Silk Road is a powerful illustration of the fact that openness and interconnection always involve both opportunity and vulnerability. That tension is actually just as relevant to contemporary globalization debates as it was 1,000 years ago. The decline of the Silk Road's overland routes is often associated with the fall of the Mongol Empire in the 14th century. Under Mongol rule, what historians call the Pax Mongolica, these routes were unusually safe and well administered, connecting an enormous swath of Eurasia under a single political umbrella. When the Mongol Empire fragmented, political instability made overland travel far more dangerous and costly. At roughly the same time, improvements in maritime navigation technology, particularly in Europe, made sea routes to Asia increasingly viable. Vasco da Gama's voyage to India in 1498 is often cited as a symbolic turning point. It demonstrated that European ships could reach Asian markets by sailing around Africa, bypassing the overland routes entirely. So the story of the Silk Road's decline is inseparable from the story of European maritime expansion and the beginning of what we might call the early modern global economy.
That is the end of the lecture 3. You now have some time to answer the questions. That is the end of the TOEFL iBT listening test. You now have some time to review your answers.
Hey people, how was your test? Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, or you'll be missing out on some serious fun. See you tomorrow!